My dream wedding is turning into a nightmare. My fiancé is always siding with his sister, which makes me doubt our relationship as a whole. Roy is 31 and I'm 30. We met in college and clicked immediately. He's intelligent, endearing, attractive and helpful. After falling in love, we've been working together to plan every aspect of our future, including retirement, vacations, a college fund for our children, where to live and how many children to have. I adore him. He's both my best friend and my soulmate. Every time I accomplish something, he tells me he's proud of me. He really encourages me to pursue your goals and aspirations. He would encourage me to pursue endeavors I was apprehensive about by assuring me of my abilities and skills. Every time I got ready to go out, he would tell me how fortunate he was to have me as his girlfriend and give me a compliment. Roy's older sister Kim is 33 and AF. When his father died when he was just 8, his mother never remarried. She is a very kind woman. Kim rarely came and lived in a distant location for work, so I never really got to know her. In my culture, we got engaged at an engagement ceremony 8 months ago. The bride and groom they exchange vows in front of close family members and friends. Kim returned to our city shortly after and got a job here. Things got tricky at that point. It's common for the bride's parents to cover the wedding expenses. My dad told me to arrange the wedding according to Roy's and my preferences. After hiring a wedding planner, my future mother-in-law didn't get involved in the planning process at first, but Kim followed us wherever we went, including to the caterers, the florist and the wedding planner's office. Roy and I were the only people I wanted. I told him I didn't like that Kim was making something that should have been just for us, but it ended up being a bit of a third wheel scenario. He advised me to be more hospitable, as Kim just wanted to attend her brother's wedding. If she hadn't spoken up and hadn't offered her valuable feedback, I would have accepted it. She would ask for pastel flowers, as I selected them. She would also select a new color. The planner said that wouldn't give the guests a proper view on the far left. I wanted to serve coconut pudding, which was my favorite dessert as a child, at my wedding, but Kim said, "Not coconut, please." I found it really frustrating that she was always there to support him. He wouldn't even discuss things with me. When it came to decisions, he'd say, "As long as you're my bride, it doesn't matter what flowers we have. Let it go. It's not that important. And starting a new life together is what matters most. It's not just about you," he said, warning me not to be self-centered when the coconut pudding issue arose. It concerns us both as well as our families. We cannot deny that Kim's food during the wedding is a concern because she is family. I was getting extremely frustrated at this. It felt like we were organizing Kim's wedding, not mine. When we were searching for wedding dresses or traditional attire for our ceremony, it was the last straw. I loved the gorgeous green outfit my mum chose for me. Of course, Kim had to stick her nose in and say it wasn't my color. Roy agreed with her, saying, "Try something else." After trying on several gowns, I ultimately selected a rose gold one that I liked, though not as much as the green one. When it was time for Kim to go shopping, she chose the exact same green dress and made the purchase. I was pretty upset about it. I left since I didn't want to cause there was a bit of a scene when Roy and I got into a heated argument when we arrived home. He said green doesn't suit your skin tone and that Kim looks better in it. I was shocked to hear it because I'd already chosen my dress when Kim chose that one. I realized that Roy consistently sided with Kim. I was amazed to see that the man I was looking at was the same one I fell in love with. Roy and Kim lost their father when they were young, so they had a close relationship. He supported her when it came to our wedding and our vision. Even though Roy and Kim were each other's best friends and support system as children, Roy would still boast about his sister to anybody he could, even if they were admiring me when we were dating in college. It was frustrating, but it wasn't a major thing, and I let it go since I knew he was very close to her. For example, if he said that the coffee I prepared tasted good. He would, "If you think this is delicious, you must try the coffee my sister makes." However, since it's our wedding and not Kim's, I can't let it go this time. I told him that if this wedding is taking place, it's either going to happen the way we both imagined it would or it won't. Roy got really angry and said that I was just jealous of his sister and would never be able to match her. Even though Kim had been nothing but nice to me, he said that I was a bitter person for resenting her. She was just trying to help. He said that I had no bad feelings towards her. Kim. All I want is the wedding of my dreams. I began to doubt everything. Imagine having a child, but naming them Tammy because Kim likes the name. Since Kim enjoys orange. Picture your house painted that shade. It's 2 against 1 in your relationship. Can you predict which side you will always support? Do you truly want to? Just follow Kim's wishes for the rest of your life. Roy's not going to change, so don't be naive enough to believe otherwise. Now, put an end to the planning. Tell your dad that nothing will cost him a cent before you end up paying for something you could later regret. Save him some cash. I can now see how bleak my future is. I don't know if I can go through with this wedding. I really want to call my mother and cry. I'd like to give my parents a hug and let them know that I was blinded by love and that they were right about him. I'll have to wait though. I can't let them see me like this. I need to gather my thoughts and prepare myself. To deal with this situation, I've already called the wedding planner and asked her to stop making any more vendor payments. Update 1: I'm eating coconut pudding at home with my sister, parents and closest friends. We spoke for a while and I forgot to admire my sister at 34F. Maya came back from overseas a week ago to help me with the wedding, which was fast approaching. She stayed at home on the day of the wedding dress shopping, while my mum and 2 of my aunts, 4 cousins, 3 uncles, Roy, Kim, Yummy, the future mother-in-law, and 2 of Roy's aunties went with me. And 2 uncles made up the group of 18 individuals that went shopping together. Roy followed me back to his house after I became irate and fled, where we got into a fight. My mum finally lost her composure at the supermarket, calling Kim derogatory names and shouting at her. Team Bride and Team Groom got into a heated after that. Kim replied by calling me some derogatory insults. Everyone was hauled out of the store after Yummy attempted to calm them down by calling the police. Kim vanished following the commotion. At this point, I got into an argument with Roy and made the decision to remain at my friend's place. Kim wasn't. I was worried about her safety, so I called her friends and family members' homes, but she wasn't picking up her phone. Roy and Yummy looked everywhere for her. The following morning, they finally located her at the home of a distant relative. When Yumi called, I didn't pick up. I had a full-blown panic episode at the hospital. My pulse started racing, I began to hyperventilate and I kept fainting before I passed out. I remember feeling a needle pierce my arm and I spent a whole day unconscious. I don't recall anything, but my companion said that I was awake at one time and acting inebriated. I was in bed when I woke up at my parents' place. One of them talked to me about what had happened or asked me any questions when I woke up. My mother asked if I wanted coffee and gave me a nice grin. You know what? On any given day, Mom's coffee is better than Kim's. I talked to Maya about her life overseas. I got some ice cream and other nibbles for my dad. I was thinking about the wedding and what it meant until later on, and it felt great. Maya gave me a hug while I was asleep that night. I remember tears streaming down my cheeks. She told me everything would be okay and to believe in God. She said it was okay to cry and to express your emotions. I got a call from Roy the next morning. I picked it up. When Roy asked where I was, I told him I was at home. He said he wanted to meet at his house to work out our issues, so I agreed. I thought that closing this chapter of my life permanently would be the only way for me to move on. My mom, Maya, and I were driven to I went to Roy's house with my dad. There were Roy Kim, Yummy, his mother, and his uncle, Yummy's brother. I thought Roy had acknowledged his errors and would offer an apology, but I was wrong. Roy started shouting at me for creating a commotion at the wedding dress store. As soon as we were seated, he continued. He told me that Kim had disappeared, that she was angry with my mum for what she said, and that she might have hurt herself. He said that he and his mother had spent the whole night driving around the city looking for her. He also said that I was heartless for not returning Yummy's calls. I asked him where I had been that evening. I hadn't picked up my phone, just like him. Our argument made me angry. Did he ever think about my welfare before? He remained silent for a few seconds before attempting to speak, but his rambling sentences were incoherent. Now I know who is more important to you, and I told him that I wasn't the one who needed to be taught a lesson. His uncle stepped in and said to my dad, "Kids these days fight over the smallest things. You can definitely teach your daughter that. Married life isn't like the movies. And that sacrifices are necessary." My father gave a strong response. My daughter is the only one who can determine if a problem is either minor or major. Let her talk to her partner. I know I'm the side chick and your sister is the main chick. I added, turning to face Roy, that being her own husband, side chick would not be acceptable to anyone with any kind of self-respect. Your sister has arranged a wonderful wedding and you are welcome to. I watched Roy's face flush as I suggested he marry her. He slapped me so hard that my nose and inner cheek began to bleed. Before I could react, my dad put him in a chokehold and struck him in the face. He then continued to punch him in the stomach. Roy's uncle, Yumi, and my mother attempted to keep them apart while I was tending to my bleeding nose when Maya gave me a firm hug. Kim was screaming like a banshee and accusing me of something I can't even remember. Maya grabbed Kim's hand and gave her a backhand as she strode at me, threatening to strike me. Kim screamed as if she were being skinned alive and collapsed to the ground. At this point, some neighbors came in and split up the group. A few minutes later, the ambulance and police arrived. Roy's face was blue and he was bleeding from his mouth. He was taken away by ambulance, while I was taken in another. Both families were sitting in the police station when I was transported there. I was getting treatment, but Roy wasn't there. Yummy came over and said she was sorry and wished me success going forward. After hearing my account, the police asked if I wanted to file charges against Roy. I said yes. They told me that Roy might file charges against my dad since he had a broken rib and a knocked-out tooth. We were all led to return home by midnight. My colleagues and I enjoyed brunch together this morning. My mum and I later read my post and the comments, particularly the ones where I said I wanted to call her and cry. They really moved her. She told me I don't have to put up a brave front while I'm in pain on the inside and that I should never be afraid to show my vulnerability around them. She said she wished I'd got in touch with her sooner. I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to leave a comment and show care for a total stranger. I wouldn't have recognized the problems as clearly if it weren't for individuals like you. Even if I had forgiven Roy, I might have had a horrible marriage. In my country, it's often taught from an early age that girls who maintain families are good girls and those who destroy them are bad girls. I wouldn't confront Kim because I didn't want to start a fight because that's what bad girls do. I'm hoping treatment will help me change this way of thinking. I'm still in mourning for the relationship I lost in the past. I'm also mourning the death of my life's love, who in retrospect never really existed. I feel lighter today, but I know it will take time for me to recover. My parents are happy, but they keep their joy from me. Since they know I'm still hurting. Since the fallout, they seem to have aged backwards. Roy has been released from the medical facility. I wish him and his sister a lifetime of happiness. I'm excited to have found who truly loves me. And you have all shown me how supportive my family is. I've never made a better choice than dumping Roy. I no longer feel the claustrophobia I did after Kim moved back. Thanks to Kim and Roy ruining my happiness, I'm now able to see that it was the proper choice to leave him. On to the next story. I'm not sure what to do. I've been with my fiancé Alex for 3 years. We met at a friend's party and hit it off. He finished his doctorate in economics last year and has been working at the university since then. I have my master's in media. He decided to start working instead of going for a PhD. So, Alex broke up with me last Monday. It was pretty surreal. For the past few months, he'd been acting strange. He was making demands and then dropping them immediately. A few he told me we were. He said he was going to repaint the walls from dark green to white. When I asked why, he just said, "Forget it," and never brought it up again. Even when I asked, he got mad because I was sitting on the couch with my head covered in a blanket. I had cramps. He was upset because I was just sitting there, watching Netflix. Their house was spotless. When I tried to talk about it, he said, "Forget it, it's not a big deal." This kind of thing became common. Every time I tried to communicate, I tried to figure out what was going on. Was it something I did? Or was he just stressed at work? He'd just say everything was fine, but he was clearly seething with rage. I didn't even have to do anything, he would find something to complain about. It was about the apartment, clothes, work, etc. So I gave him space, which apparently was also wrong. I told him I was going to help my parents with repairs for a few days, and somehow that was also wrong because he wanted to renovate the apartment too. Then on Monday I got a text saying we needed to talk. I knew what was coming. After the last few months, I had made peace with it. When I came home, he was sitting on the couch. He didn't even wait for me to take off my jacket before saying, "I." He then told me he wanted to break up with me. He said he'd been resentful because I'd not pursued my academic career further, even though I was capable. He said he didn't want to upset me at the time. Then, when I started making more money, since he didn't make much as a PhD student, he felt like I should have the last thing was money, and he hated it. I never said it was my money, so I have the final say. That's a rule he imposed on himself, and he hated it. He said he hated our paint scheme, the couch, and even our crock-pot. Then he told me he had rejected a better PhD program to stay here because he got the acceptance letters after I'd already started my job. He never told me he'd applied overseas. A few months ago, he said he checked in with a friend in that program. He saw how they were thriving and decided I'd ruined his life. He said I had too much control over his life and that he hated the idea that I could just decide not to pay for things and screw him over is beyond me. He also said he hated that all his friends loved me and didn't let him vent about me. Then he said again, "I'm done." I was floored. I had already made peace with the idea that we were ending. I was hurt, but after that outburst, I was just disgusted. I looked at him and said, "Okay, he lost it." He said that's exactly what he meant, that it was horrible. We'd been together for 4 years, and all I had to say was, "Okay," to our breakup. I just asked if he wanted to stay here while I figured out where to go. He said it was typical of me to hold the apartment over him. He started ranting again. So I just left. I told my parents, and they're also confused. My dad suggested I reach out to our landlord and explain the situation to see what options I have. I can keep paying the rent. No problem. He covered the utilities and some subscriptions. Just to reiterate, I never had a problem with this. I saw that he was chasing his dream, and that was more important to me than a 50/50 financial split. I make good money and I'm happy at my job. I never saw it as slaving away. I always had the mentality that my money was. We were building a life together, so we decided to pool our money. I had my own savings and fun money, but I never cared as long as I felt he was working towards something and wasn't taking advantage of me. Alex is still mad. He's going between texting me like a robot about the "I'm not sure if I handled the logistics of the split correctly." I'm not upset about it, but I do feel a bit nauseated by him at this point. I don't know if I should have reacted differently. Edit, thanks for all your opinions. It was nice to get this off my chest. Just to clarify, I feel like I'm the victim here. It seems like something happened and my relationship just turned bad. He behaved like an asshole, but that is the extent of it. There's clearly something going on, but he doesn't want me to be part of whatever it is, and I have to respect that. Now I just have to untangle myself legally from him. I'll just have to get on with it, living with my ugly green wall color. I think I might adopt a cat as my ex was really allergic. Some of Dob's comments were pretty harsh. Commenter NTA basically said he hates you and everything about you. What are you supposed to do? Beg for his love when you can find someone who'll give it to you readily. Sorry to hear this happened and that you were blindsided. I do think this will be a good thing in the long run, though. You'll be on to the next one soon enough. Photo IW, he sounds jealous, insecure and emotionally stunted. If what you've written is how things played out, then you dodged a huge bullet. Hopefully he'll realize what he's done. I hate about you, I don't know. He wants to break up with me. Why would I plead? It is a deleted comment. I was really confused trying to take everything in. He talked really fast and a lot, so I did not know what else to say. Also, because everything I do is wrong, I think he would have been even more annoyed if I started. I can't just ghost him. We have to talk about the lease, our wedding, the savings account and a few other things. I have to wait to get a response from the landlord and inform the bank. So until I don't have confirmation that I'm keeping him unblocked. I've muted him on the wall and all comments. It seems like he's struggling with the idea of you being the breadwinner. That's not your problem. He could have communicated better. Instead of bottling up his insecurities, he could have handled it like an adult. He sounds emotionally weak, which is pretty dumb. He's a doctor in the economy. He also wanted to become a professor, but ended up with a more common job. He resents himself for making decisions without consulting you. He chose his comforts, but now that others seem to be in a better position, he is blaming you for his situation. He has a limited understanding of how to use his brain. If he'd wanted to move away, I would have supported him. I'm not sure we would have stayed together because long-distance relationships are difficult, but I would have been 100% supportive. Maybe he resented you for being successful while he wasn't, but that's the thing, he was successful. He has even published a few papers in important magazines and is on the way to become a junior professor. He is objectively really successful. I really hope he meets the telenovela star of his dreams. I'd prefer to stick with my boring, happy life. What country are you in? I'm in the US. If you're in Germany, you'll know that the average person would have accumulated debt if they made it that far in their education. He's been staying with a friend and we've taken care of all the admin stuff like mail subscriptions and the lease. I'm also in the process of adopting a cat. Her name is Lunar, but I've been thinking about changing it since my family already has 2 pets named Lunar, Moon and Kamar. She's still at her foster home for now, but I've already visited her a few times and I already adore her. She is a scrappy little tabby who follows her foster mum around like a shadow. I can't wait for her to move in during the first week of December. I've already got her bowls, toys and a bed by the window ready. On to what happened last week. I was out showing someone around. He's the son of my parents' friends who recently moved here for work. My parents asked me to help him get familiar with the area, so I agreed to show him around. We just walked around, grabbed coffee, and pointed out useful spots in the city. Alex saw us and I didn't even realize he was there. Later that night, I started getting texts from an unknown number. I guess he got a new number since I blocked his old one. The texts were just weird. He accused me of flaunting my new relationship in public and said I must have been seeing this guy before we broke up. He also told me that everything he suspected about me was true. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to entertain his paranoia. The messages kept coming though. They went from angry to desperate. He was saying things like, "At least admit you were lying to me, and was anything about us even real?" It was exhausting and, to be honest, a little scary to see how quickly he spiraled. For the record, the guy isn't my boyfriend. In fact, he's not even someone I'm interested in. He's just the son of friends who needed help settling into the city. The whole thing was completely innocent. But Alex has twisted it into some kind of betrayal in his head. What gets me is how little Alex seems to know me. I'm not the type of person to do something like that. To jump into a relationship so soon after everything that happened, even if I were, it wouldn't be any of his business. We've decided to go our separate ways. I made that clear after I didn't respond to his text. Alex then started calling, but I didn't pick up. The voicemails were a mix of angry rants and desperate pleas. I ended up blocking his number. 2. It feels a bit ridiculous that I have to keep doing this, but I guess this is where we are now. Then this weekend I went out to a bar with my friends. A few hours in, guess who walked in? Alex. I don't know if it was a coincidence or if he followed me there, but as soon as he spotted me he came straight over. He was clearly upset and asked to talk, but I told him no. Thankfully, my friend stepped in and he left without causing a scene. It ruined my night though. It felt like I couldn't escape him, no matter where I went or what I did. When I got home later that night, I was completely drained. I had just started to relax when I heard a knock on my door. It was Alex, standing there in tears. He started crying, saying he missed me, that he didn't understand why I was doing this to him, and that he didn't know how to move on. It was like all the anger from earlier had been replaced with this desperate sadness. I didn't let him in. I told him to leave. I told him he needed to leave and that I would call someone to make him leave if he didn't. He begged me to listen, but I just closed the door. I spent the rest of the night feeling shaken and, to be honest, a little scared. I don't know what he's going through. I wrote to his best friend about the situation, but I pleaded with him to talk to me. He said he would. I'm thinking of getting a new phone number and talking to someone about how to handle this legally if it keeps happening. It feels unfair that I have to go to these lengths just to have some peace, but I don't see another option. Safety is a big concern. You have to provide evidence like texts, calls or witnesses, and then attend court to get approval. It's not something you can do lightly or without solid proof. I'm obviously not getting a gun. I've also seen people diagnosing Alex with various mental health issues. I'd like to ask everyone to stop. Yes, something is clearly wrong, but I'm not a doctor and neither are most of you. It's not fair or helpful to label him with something like bipolar disorder or anything else without real expertise. For what it's worth, I don't actually feel like I'm in danger in the past month. These were the only 3 incidents. I don't think he's actively stalking me. He just knew my patterns. The bar we were at is my favorite spot. It was a party of one of my closest friends, so it makes sense that he might have guessed I'd be there. When he showed up at my apartment, he knew what time I usually got home. The city tour might have been more intentional, but it could also have been a coincidence that triggered everything. Anyway, this is the end of it. Yesterday, Alex came over with his mum and one of his friends. At first, I didn't want to let him in, but he promised me that this would be the last time I saw him. I agreed to meet up with him and his mum and friend. I figured it would be easier to talk through everything when we sat down. Alex told me he was going through a rough patch and that he was upset with me, but he didn't know why. He said he didn't like me and that I annoyed him. But he still loves me, which is why he went crazy when he saw me with someone else. He told me there wasn't anyone else on his end. He said he felt like he was going insane. He talked about how he feels judged for being older and not being able to give me the life he thinks I deserve. He said he hates his colleagues, hates his job, and hates everything right now. He also said that everyone and everything annoys him. He told me he feels old and like he should want kids at this point in his life, but he doesn't. He said that thought terrifies him. He said he just wants to be alone and not talk to anyone. While I didn't say much, I mostly just nodded because I didn't know what to say. After he was done, he told me he was leaving. He's on some kind of mental health leave from work and he said he's leaving the country on Sunday. He's going to South America to spend time in nature and find himself. He thanked me he said he was sorry for how he acted and then he just got up, grabbed a few things he had left at my place and walked out. His mum was inconsolable and kept apologizing to me over and over, saying how embarrassed she was by his behavior. I told her it was okay and that she didn't need to apologize to him. His friend ended up driving her home after Alex left. I'm not really sure how I feel about all of this. Part of me is relieved that it's over, but part of me feels sad for him because he clearly doesn't know how to deal with everything he's feeling. I'm glad he's taking steps to figure himself out, but it's not my responsibility. Any more comments on not getting a gun? Editor's note: it was probably just a troll who asked, but I liked DOP's response. You can't buy guns at an Aldi. It's more dangerous to own a gun when you have no training with it than not owning one. It's a tough situation. I empathize, but ultimately, these issues are his to deal with, not yours. Hopefully, this is the last you'll hear of him. Good luck to you, OOP. It's just a phase, I suppose. Who knows? Edit, the 3rd of December 2024. 5 days later, about 6 weeks from OG post. I heard some stories about him at the airport and then about a day later in Bogota. So, he is gone. I am safe. On Friday, I get to pick up Alio's Maximus first, which I've nicknamed Helly. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. You can also choose to receive notifications to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. NTA comment. Army.